1 Kings Chapter 17. And Elijah the Tishbite, from among the inhabitants of Gilead, said to Ahab, As Jehovah the God of Israel lives, before whom I stand, there shall not be dew nor rain during these years, except by my word. And the word of Jehovah came to him, saying, Go from here and turn eastward, and hide yourself by the brook Cherith, which is before the Jordan. And you shall drink from the brook, and I have commanded the ravens to feed you there. And he went and did according to the word of Jehovah, that is, he went and stayed by the brook Cherith, which is before the Jordan. And the ravens would bring him bread and meat in the morning and bread and meat in the evening, and he drank from the brook. Then after a while the brook dried up, for there had been no rain in the land. And the word of Jehovah came to him, saying, Rise up and go to Zarephath, which belongs to Zidon, and stay there. I have just commanded a widow there to keep you fed. And he rose up and went to Zarephath. And when he came to the entrance of the city, a widow was there gathering sticks. And he called to her and said, I beg you, bring me a little water in a vessel, that I may drink. And she went to get it. Then he called to her and said, I beg you, bring me a piece of bread in your hand. And she said, As Jehovah your God lives, I have nothing baked, but only a handful of meal in a barrel and a little oil in a jar, and I am now gathering a few sticks that I may go and prepare it for me and my son, that we may eat it and die. And Elijah said to her, Do not fear. Go, do as you have said. But make me a little cake out of it first, and bring it out to me, then make something for yourself and for your son afterward. For thus says Jehovah the God of Israel, the barrel of meal will not give out, nor will the jar of oil fail, until the day that Jehovah sends rain upon the face of the earth. And she went and did according to the word of Elijah. And she and he and her house ate for many days. The barrel of meal did not give out, nor did the jar of oil fail, according to the word of Jehovah, which he had spoken through Elijah. Then after these things the son of the woman, the mistress of the house, became ill, and his illness was so severe that there was no breath left in him. And she said to Elijah, What have I done to you, O man of God, that you have come to me to recall my iniquity and kill my son? And he said to her, Bring me your son. And he took him out of her bosom and carried him up into the upper chamber where he was staying, and he laid him upon his own bed. And he cried to Jehovah and said, Jehovah, my God, have you also brought evil upon the widow, to whom I am a guest, by slaying her son? And he stretched himself upon the child 3 times and cried to Jehovah and said, Jehovah, my God, I beg you, let this child's soul come into him again. And Jehovah listened to the voice of Elijah, and the child's soul came into him again, and he lived. And Elijah took the child and brought him down from the upper room into the house and gave him to his mother. And Elijah said, See, your son is alive. And the woman said to Elijah, Now by this I know that you are a man of God and that the word of Jehovah in your mouth is truth. 1 Kings Chapter 18. Then after many days the word of Jehovah came to Elijah in the 3rd year, saying, Go, present yourself to Ahab, and I will send rain upon the face of the earth. And Elijah went to present himself to Ahab. And the famine was severe in Samaria. And Ahab called for Obadiah, who was over his house. Now Obadiah feared Jehovah greatly. And when Jezebel cut off the prophets of Jehovah, Obadiah took 100 prophets and hid them by 50s in a cave and kept them fed with bread and water. And Ahab said to Obadiah, Go through the land, to all the springs of water and to all the brooks, perhaps we will find grass to keep the horses and the mules alive and not lose some of the animals. And they divided the land between them in order to pass through it. Ahab went one way by himself, and Obadiah went another way by himself. And while Obadiah was on the way, Elijah met him at that moment, and he recognized him and fell on his face and said, Is it indeed you, my lord Elijah?" And he said to him, "It is I. Go and say to your lord, Elijah is here." And he said, "What sin have I committed, that you give your servant into the hand of Ahab to put me to death? As Jehovah your God lives, there is no nation or kingdom that my lord has not sent men into in order to seek you." And when they said, "He is not here," he had an oath taken from the kingdom or nation that they had not found you there. And now you say, "Go and say to your lord, Elijah is here." And it will happen that when I go away from you, the Spirit of Jehovah will carry you off, I know not where, and when I come and tell Ahab, and he cannot find you, he will slay me, although I your servant have feared Jehovah since my youth. Was it not told my lord what I did when Jezebel slew the prophets of Jehovah, that I hid 100 of Jehovah's prophets by 50s in a cave and kept them fed with bread and water? And now you say, "Go and say to your lord, Elijah is here, and he will slay me." Then Elijah said, "As Jehovah of hosts lives, before whom I stand, I will present myself to him today." Then Obadiah went to meet Ahab, and he told him. And Ahab went to meet Elijah. And when Ahab saw Elijah, Ahab said to him, "Is that you, the troubler of Israel?" And he said, "I have not troubled Israel, but you and your father's house have, in that you have forsaken the commandments of Jehovah and have gone after the Baals. And now send word, and gather all Israel to me at Mount Carmel, as well as the 450 prophets of Baal and the 400 prophets of the Asherah, who eat at Jezebel's table." So Ahab sent word to all the children of Israel and gathered the prophets together unto Mount Carmel. Then Elijah came near to all the people and said, "How long will you go hopping between two opinions? If Jehovah is God, follow him, but if Baal is, follow him." And the people did not answer him a word. And Elijah said to the people, "I alone am left as a prophet of Jehovah, but Baal's prophets are 450 men. Let them therefore give us 2 bulls. And let them choose 1 bull for themselves and cut it in pieces and put it on the wood, but let them apply no fire, and I will prepare the other bull and put it on the wood, and I will apply no fire. Then call on the name of your God, and I will call on the name of Jehovah, and the God who answers by fire, he will be God." And all the people answered and said, "The word seems good." And Elijah said to the prophets of Baal, "Choose 1 bull for yourselves, and prepare it first, for there are many of you. And call on the name of your God, but apply no fire." So they took the bull which had been given them and prepared it, and they called on the name of Baal from morning until noon, saying, "O Baal, answer us." But there was no voice, and no one answered. And they leaped around the altar that had been made. Then at noon Elijah mocked them and said, "Cry out with a loud voice, for he is a god, for he is meditating or has wandered off or is on a journey. Perhaps he is asleep and will awake." And they cried out with a loud voice and cut themselves, according to their custom, with swords and spears until blood gushed out all over them. And when noon had passed, they prophesied until the time of the offering up of the meal offering, but there was no voice nor any that answered nor any attention paid. Then Elijah said to all the people, "Come near to me." And all the people came near to him. And he repaired the altar of Jehovah which was broken down. And Elijah took 12 stones, according to the number of the tribes of the sons of Jacob, to whom the word of Jehovah came, saying, "Israel shall be your name." And with the stones he built an altar in the name of Jehovah, and he made a trench around the altar, with a capacity of 2 measures of seed. And he arranged the wood and cut the bull in pieces and laid it on the wood. And he said, "Fill 4 jars with water, and pour the water on the burnt offering and on the wood." And he said, "Do it a second time." And they did it a second time. And he said, "Do it a third time." And they did it a third time. And the water went around the altar, and he filled the trench also with water. Then at the time of the offering up of the meal offering, Elijah the prophet came near and said, O Jehovah, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, let it be known today that you are God in Israel and that I am your servant and that I have done all these things by your word. Answer me, O Jehovah, answer me, that this people may know that you, O Jehovah, are God and that you have turned their heart back again. And the fire of Jehovah fell and consumed the burnt offering and the wood and the stones and the dust, and it licked up the water that was in the trench. And when all the people saw this, they fell on their faces and said, Jehovah he is God. Jehovah he is God. And Elijah said to them, Seize the prophets of Baal, let not one of them escape. And they seized them, and Elijah brought them down to the brook Kishon and slaughtered them there. Then Elijah said to Ahab, Go up, eat and drink, for there is the sound of an abundance of rain. And Ahab went up to eat and drink. And Elijah went up to the top of Carmel, and he bowed down on the earth and put his face between his knees. And he said to his attendant, Go up now, look toward the sea. And he went up and looked and said, There is nothing. And he said 7 times, Go back. And at the 7th time the attendant said, Now there is a cloud, small as a man's hand, coming up out of the sea. And Elijah said, Go up and say to Ahab, Prepare a chariot and go down, so that the rain does not stop you. And in the meantime the heavens became black with clouds, and there was wind and a great rain. And Ahab mounted his chariot and went to Jezreel. And the hand of Jehovah was upon Elijah, and he girded up his loins and ran before Ahab to the entrance of Jezreel.